Hi, Robert. Jeff Allen here. Just saw your post. Well, saw your post a couple days ago. I'm catching up on things right now. Still got my post bronchitis cough. The Halloween cough that's still going several weeks later. Um, the cold calling. You mentioned something about the cold calling in your post on LinkedIn, and struck you out. A lot of language service providers don't have a phone number to reach people on. They don't have consistent phone approach with any human touch. um, you know, they've got automated ways to catch them, and then you got to go through all these call systems and stuff, and no numbers to really reach people and all this kind of things. And and then kind of feeling that it's online, the whole online effect of trying to reach a computer and not a human being. And I really agree with that. I mean, you know, we both worked for the one that does a lot of cold calling, right? We both been through that, and we know what cold calling is. And I remember doing 20 cold calls a day for 20 months. That's 8,000 cold calls, but it always means I was reachable, right? It meant that I was always reachable on my phone at all times. And people would try to call out to me, reach out to me and call me, right? Because my phone number was on the business card, and was on we sent a lot of letters, 200 letters a day, and we 20 cold calls a day. So that means you leave messages, and you expect people to reach you. And if people are trying to use automated systems to do this, they're missing the point, because they're missing the way of I would say the majority of business is not done online. The majority of business of local business is done, you know, in person. And I mean, I've talked to my music store, and I imagine my music store is a lot of references when I talk about, because I watch how he does things. And he's in a small independent business, he's doing okay. And he has to fight against the competition, which is big stores, right? Big stores, just shopping centers, right? That have just general music, they don't have any music, advice or anything. They just have instruments. You can buy some core, music strings or whatever, but guitar strings, but there's nothing. But he has his phone on him all the time, right? He has his landline phone with him all the time. He has a mobile phone all the time. He's reachable, and people call him all the time, and he's always answering. Now, some people call him, kind of, the 4G network's not great, so you can't hear them. They probably drop by. They're going through the roundabout and driving on, and they're trying to call from a bad network area, but they're trying to call him, right? And he deals with a lot of distributors. A lot of distributors bringing that he can get things from, and that's a lot of phone discussion. He does a lot by email, but he says a lot of what he does is phone. And a lot of this is what we need to understand in this whole B2B. I think this is what he's getting at. And I've got a whole nother video on the B2B aspect of this entire language industry. Right? It's all B2B except for a few B2Cs at the end, really end the line, and the very little bit, right? um, there's a B2B nature and a B2C nature, and you've got to deal with both. And a huge amount of stuff that is done in the B2B side is in business in general is by phone. And what I've actually helped on projects where, like in the food industry, I mean, even for the Care for Food, this is nothing confidential. We had a Care for Food kind of the recycling food stuff. We had a whole kind of project to get a new thing off the ground. It was up on LinkedIn, and we mentioned it last year. And the whole thing was to try to help the whole logistics of the whole food industry of recycled food, basically recycled fruits and stuff. Yeah, well, the recycled fruit that's still not gone bad, and it's not great shapes and stuff. It doesn't go bad, and it doesn't go quite bad. So you can recycle it into other derivative food products, right? Or perfumes and stuff. The whole thing, it's a phone based thing. The entire network is all phone based, right? And so what we were helping try is to help provide a platform that would help alleviate a lot of the the work that's done manually during that to help to do that. But it's still going to remain phone based. And the whole thing they're all saying is it's going to be phone based. And they keep saying it's going to be phone based. How are you going to help us in the phone based industry, right? And so I think that that inspires me, even though we want to help provide a platform to help them with this whole logistics of the entire workflow or workflows, is to keep in mind that it's still going to be, they're not going to drop the phone because that's how their business works, right? So I think that we need to think about this in the whole language industry is how do we do things? If they're dropping the phone off, then they're losing opportunities. So so I have to give a little bit of my perspective. I mean, we've kind of worked together in the past, and I've kind of done some other stuff here, and I mentioned a few of these other examples, but I think this is key. So now, what is the best practice? I don't think there's any best practice of anything on this kind of thing. There's a lot of trial and error. But I think it kind of depends on where you live, kind of depends on the country, and it kind of depends. I live in France, and so there's it's a relationship based kind of thing. I mean, the majority of stuff has to be relationship based. It cannot be by marriage. Just say, hey, I'm going to buy this and stuff. There needs to be a build up the relationship. So it's a really key thing. But in other places, in other countries, this is not so much the case. Like a lot of Anglo-Saxon cultures aren't that way, right? They're more by merit, so trust. I mean, that kind of thing. It's you get the money and have the business, right? And it's not quite that way, but that's more that way than some of these Latin-based countries, right? So I think that this is Latin-based cultures, and I think that this is a key thing to keep in mind. It kind of depends on people that work in e-commerce purely. They're going to be a lot more focused on the platform stuff and everything. And I've built systems, to help do that, right? But you got to have support, right? And when you don't have support, they can't you get stuff doesn't work. If you have an automated support system for something, a platform doesn't work, people are going to kind of get mad at you, right? I got other words for that. But so kind of, being reachable is a pretty important thing in any of this. And people kind of get tired, go through automated systems, right? And getting kicked off after 20 minutes of waiting. You got to recall again, get back in the line, right? Back in the queue. So that's all kind of plays into this. So I think it's important. Always have a number that people can reach on. Doesn't matter if it's simple or not. If you can have a simple one, that's great. But if you can't make it, have this super 1-800 number that's all perfect and has a name in it with the corresponding letters, so what? Just have a number you can reach at, all right? So thanks so much. I hope that kind of gives them at least my perspective on that today with my post-Halloween, post-COVID cough that's still going. And we're working on trying to fix that too.